My name's Mary Lagadrost Heat. Lagadrost is my maiden name, and I grew up here, which is now Pyramid Hill. There's 50 acres here that I grew up on. I was born in this area. I spent 24, 25 years here. We were here all the time. Riding horses, fishing, hunting, a little bit of everything. Being on the tractor with my grandpa when I found the big tomahawk head. That's one of my best ones. These were all found here, local on the farm and in the creek and that kind of stuff. Pyramid Hill, it was actually a working farm since the late 1800s. It's been in my family since the late 1880s, 1890s. It was a vineyard at one point. It was a Holstein farm for a while, milking cows, big variety. This is a picture that, if you're ever on my Facebook page, and you really can't make it out well, but there's the stone house. This picture was actually taken on the hill directly across from the stone house. There's a picture of my barn, and in the corner front of my house where I grew up at. But it was a great place to grow up. I'm glad that Pyramid Hills asked me to come and talk about the stone house and the surrounding area. There was a whole lot larger structure here in front of the house. It was actually a whole nother addition to the house. Over the years it was gone. My dad doesn't even remember the front section of the house being here. But the lower part, it had pipes in it for a winery. It wasn't a winery when I was a kid. The vineyard was gone. I had it as a playhouse. We climbed all over it, climbed through it, and as a kid, it still had the window wood structures, not actually glass in it, but the actual frames in the windows and frames for the doors as a kid, and it just, over the years, just fell apart, and from the weather beating on it, because it never had a roof on it when I was a kid.
Okay.
It had a roof on it when my dad was younger,
Okay.
but it never had a roof on it as a kid.
Okay.
My house that I grew up in was moved.
Right. Okay.
But this one, no, this structure's been here for as long as my family's had property.
So this was like always the first level, right? This wasn't a
Yeah,
basement
this was the
itself.
first level
Okay.
here, and then it went up,
And then it went up.
and and there's one picture that you can see the top. So it was actually a two-story structure
Okay.
that somehow or another just sat here or was attached to the house somehow.
Okay. Gotcha.
But yeah.
There's a very good chance it was built as the spring house. All of your farms and everything in this area would have had a spring house. They were usually 1 or 2 stories high, made of stone because of the insulation for keeping it cool. Usually there was a stream or a creek right there, and they would divert the water through the basement of the house to keep it cool. And the stones would keep the temperature at a cooler time period during the summertime. They didn't have refrigeration. That's where you would have kept your milk, your cheese, your meats, things like this. And every single farmhouse in this area from the early 1800s on would have probably had a spring house. So that's a very good possibility that that's what it was.
This has been here what seems like forever. But my great-grandpa and his siblings actually lived in the house.
And there were 13 of
13 siblings, and then plus his mom and dad. My grandpa was actually born 1911, May 30th, 1911, here in the stone house. And then they rented the house that I grew up in for a while until my dad moved in 61.
And then when your dad moved in, what else was here? So there was still the barn
The
here,
barn,
the house, the stone house
the
was
house,
here.
the chicken coop, and the garage, and the granary was all here. But I've actually got a few pictures that show there was a big shed in front of our house because my great-grandpa was a blacksmith. This is where my house sits.
And then this was all.
This is all creek, and they've actually lowered the side. The creek is actually considered Annie's Run,
That's right. Yeah.
so.
And does the creek? So the creek goes from Fortified Hill all the way down.
It
here?
starts up in that
In
general
that
area.
Okay.
Yeah, and it started up through there because there's a couple ponds up that way. So, and it fed through under Sky Meadow, and then come down here, turned, and then comes all the way down to the Great Miami. My mom and dad sold the farm about 26, 27 years ago. Yeah. My dad sold it to Harry Wilkes.
Yeah. Have you ever met Harry Wilkes himself?
No, I never did.
Okay.
Dad knew him.
Sure.
And he approached us about buying the place because it just got to be too much for them to take care of. The barn was a log barn, so it was falling in, and had to have water hauled in all the time because the spring couldn't keep up with the water for the house, especially in a dry season.
Yeah.
Because we grew up having the spring for the water in the house.
Okay. Yeah.
So we had to have oil hauled in, and the bridge. If anybody's been around knowing this bridge, it was ready to collapse. And having an oil truck cross that, a couple of 10, 15 ton crossing that bridge, it was hold your breath and hope you got across and got back again. There's a lot of Native American history here.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of anxious to see what you guys or whoever's doing Fortified Hill, what they come up with. If I knew then what I know now, I'd have never let Dad part with this place.
Really?
Because of the history here.
Yeah.
This painting my dad had done years ago by a local artist. She was actually up on North 3rd Street. Her name was Ruth Wentz, W-E-N-T-Z. Really talented lady. She came out and hung out at the farm with us for a while. As you can see, it's got the old stone house here and a couple, and then our log barn and a few of the other ones. And this is now in my possession. Dad passed it to me, and it's really cool, I think. She done really well capturing everything. As you can see in the picture, the stone house has now been altered a little bit because the arch was falling in with loose stone and different things. So I'd go back tomorrow and do it all over again.
Yeah.